Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have GATC Health. It's a private company accelerating, optimizing, and de-risking drug discovery and development by closing the AI gap to save years of R&D time and potentially hundreds of millions of dollars per project for our pharma partners. Please welcome its COO, Tyrone Lam, and Chief Marketing Officer, Preetaman Wadhwa. Welcome. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful. Great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
We look forward to your presentation. Please, whenever you're ready.
Very good. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to spending a few minutes going through our company, what we're doing, how we can revolutionize what's going on in drug and pharma industries today, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. So looking forward to it. So GATC Health is a summary of what we do, what's the opportunity in the marketplace, and then how are we going to disrupt the industry in order to create opportunities for ourselves, our customers, and our investors in that process. So overall, the situation is developing drugs is very expensive. Actually getting them through the pharmaceutical, the whole process of getting FDA approval, it's, as Preetam will go into details, over $1 billion, 10 plus years to get a drug to market, and you have much greater than a 90% failure rate. So in essence, the pharma business in developing drugs is broken and it needs to be fixed. There's been a lot of promises by other companies that have market caps in the billions of dollars that are using artificial intelligence to accelerate or de-risk this process. They're not meeting that promise, and you've seen a lot of market resets in terms of these publicly held companies because the AI is not taking it across the finish line, creating an AI gap, if you will. So a gap between what is the promise of what AI can do, and then there's a space that still needs to be filled with very expensive traditional drug discovery, testing, and research. And we're going to talk about how we're closing that gap. So what's the opportunity for a company like ours? It's to develop brand new drug compounds that can come to market that create new therapeutics for diseases that are affecting people all over the world. Also partnering with all different size pharmaceutical companies, small, medium, very large pharmaceutical companies, to accelerate and de-risk the process of getting those drugs to market and doing it in such a way that they can produce more, better drugs in a shorter period of time. We also have, through our AI platform, we have the ability to onboard a tremendous amount of broad, diverse data, health data. And in addition to discovering novel therapeutics and drugs, we can also produce personalized medicine reports or predictive medicine reports based on an individual's genetic information, but also much larger genomic and omic information that lives in the body. So looking at a snapshot of the body to determine what that individual is at risk for, what diseases, what are the right therapeutics that will be perfect for that individual in terms of dosage, and what kind of preventative measures that individual patient can take as well. And we're partnering with different distribution partners, wellness companies, physicians, hospitals, et cetera, to get those products out to market. So what are we doing? Well, we've developed a platform, an AI, a very broad AI platform that mimics human biology. And we'll go into this a little bit, but if you think about this in a practical manner, how else can technology predict disease risk and find new therapeutics if we're not recreating human biology? And that's what we do differently, and we believe uniquely in the marketplace. We also have proven through various tests that we can move literally trillions of bits of information through our system in minutes. So the scale is very high, security is very high as well, compatibility with other systems, and also the way we collect data through these individual personalized medicine reports and other information. We bring in onboarding de-identified patient information. So we don't know who the individual is, we just know the biological information that we're ingesting, and that makes our AI platform much smarter. So now I'm going to hand it over to Preetaman, who's going to go more in depth into the industry.
Thanks, Ty. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us over. I'm really excited to share with you the value proposition that GATC Health has in line with what Ty has talked about. But let's get a little deeper into where's the problem. For 17 years, I was part of Amgen, and year over year, we saw challenges in our strategic planning and execution because the drugs were not delivering the promise that they were set to at the early stages of discovery. Even with years of transformation that the industry claims to have gotten, where are we today? Today, it takes about 10 years to get a drug out in the market. With that, takes an investment of $2.6 billion to get one successful drug out. And this is not a drug that is guaranteed blockbuster. Peak sales of an average molecule, average drug that launches is about $500 million, not a blockbuster. But look at the investment that has gone in. And over each step, starting from discovery to preclinical to clinical trials, there's a huge risk that the industry takes in this investment because the risk of failure is very high. This risk is based off of maybe the drug doesn't work on the disease that it was tested for. Maybe it is not the right patient. Maybe it is just not the right dose and hence the safety issues. But none of them can be predictably resolved upfront. Now, there have been some advancements using AI to reduce these risks, which can go to maybe my best guess is a 0.001% chance of success from start to failure, from when the disease is discovered to drug discovered, all the way taking it to FDA. Is that a risk we want to continue investing in? And the challenge then the pharma has is they have to charge higher prices. They have to really look for innovation instead of going me too in various diseases. Hence, the problem overall that pharma and life sciences today holds is that the cost, the risk, and the time that it takes to bring a drug to a molecule with no guarantee of success is so high and unsustainable because we cannot continue putting $200 billion of investment in biopharma to bring me too drugs out with very low innovation. So as we think about, next slide, Ty. Thank you. So as we think about where there is a need for change, the opportunity is tremendous. Starting from research to discovery to preclinical and each phase of these trials to final review and even post-launch and the commercialization phase, AI, artificial intelligence, can help eliminate risks and help us get to better drugs faster, like Ty said. Better drugs faster is a promise that GATC Health has because it's a unique platform that can help address challenges at different stages. In the earlier stages where research, discovery, and preclinical is happening, we are able to identify novel targets, novel biomarkers, novel mechanisms, a unique new approach of resolving the disease which was not existent. Then we can synthesize those molecules, new molecules that can help address where the problem or where the disease or the source of disease is. But that's not all. Like I mentioned, I was with Amgen for 17 years. Our typical approach was we started working on one disease with one drug, go all the way through all the clinical trials, and then see, is there result? Yes, there is. Now let me think about what other diseases I can go in, what we called as the life cycle plan. A platform like this from GATC Health's AI technology changes the sequential nature, which delays the revenue that can come in from the same drug completely because it goes from sequential to more of a parallel tracking. And what I mean by that is upfront in the drug discovery phase, think about a world where we can tell, hey, this drug will work in these cancers as well as some other diseases, and let's do trial on them in parallel because we've already de-risked and we can tell you with near guarantee that this drug is likely to work in this disease. Hence, the same revenue that would be realized in 10 years after the first launch can be realized in the first 3 years after launch. That is a multi-billion-dollar impact on pharma industry, both from an investment and a revenue standpoint. Similar to this example, there are several other ways where GATC technology helps this industry to move forward. One question you probably have is, okay, there is a buzz about AI. Tell us what specifically does GATC do, what the competition cannot do? What do you deliver? This slide does a good job in explaining what do we deliver. On the left-hand side in orange bubbles, you see traditionally how this industry is operated. Going from a massive thousands of compounds to work on the disease, finally, when the manual testing is done, the industry gets to about 5,000 molecules from which they have to decide which ones to take into preclinical and finally the clinical trial drug. There are competition, and I say competition loosely because nobody does what we do, but there are other companies who claim that they have impacted this time frame of 4 to 6 years and 5,000 molecules and have shrunk it. But look what they have shrunk it to. Now there are 1,000 molecules that the industry has still to take forward to identify what may work in animals and eventually in humans. And they have taken the 4 to 6 years and shrunk that time to half. This is good. This was good improvement in our yesteryears. But is it enough? Is a question that the industry challenges itself every day. And the answer is no. We can do better, and GATC Health really is attempting to set up a new standard. And the new standard is that we can identify those 1 to 3 molecules. This is that needle from a haystack, which has the highest predictability of success to be efficacious and safe for the patient. And if that can be predicted even before the drug enters the human, that's a gold mine that we offer pharma industry. De-risking these molecules upfront in a time period that is unheard of, which is in 3 to 6 months, we have developed this molecule and run it through our AI platform and helped industry identify what can go in clinical trials with much higher success than the clinical testing results are typically a 90% failure rate. Imagine a 90% success rate. So that takes us to the question on how do we do it? Next slide, please. So this is a simple schematic to help you understand what we do. Like Ty said, we have massive amount of data. And by the way, that is a unique differentiation as well, because some of the other companies are taking data that's available outside and regurgitating it, because when you take this data that's limited data that's available and get to the disease, you're working with very small data. And we know AI operates with what goes in and how the machine learns. More that goes in, better the machine learns. And that's what GATC Health does. We have much more data than what other companies do because we have our own proprietary data. We take this data into our AI, train the AI system to recognize how the disease operates in the human. And that brings me to another key differentiation is the human-like environment we can create. We have data of 6.4 billion interactions that the human body does, head to toe across systems, and we can mimic what a normal human body looks like in this AI platform. And when a disease happens in a certain part of the body, what mechanisms are impacted? And as we bring our new novel drug, does that mechanism get addressed to go back to how the normal human body looks like? So that human-like environment is created in AI at a disease level to identify what will be the new drug that will solve, both for small molecules like tablets and also like biologic agents, which are infusion and other complex mechanisms of actions. So, or modes of administration, I should say, and we can address that. So identifying disease, the biomarker that works, the drug that works, and ultimately creating that molecule which is ready to go in animals. All of this being done in 3 to 6 months is where GATC completely is transcending how the industry standards have to be set. We are very pleased with how, even though we've been founded in 2020, so in 2 years, the progress we have made and the versatility of our AI platform is represented on this slide. What you're seeing here are all the patents that we have filed, and most of them in the last 1 year. where we're not only bringing forward drugs where socioeconomic issues exist around addiction, which is our first area of focus with addiction, PTSD, and MDD, but we have a very unique pro-drug aspect of glioblastoma that we've also filed a patent for. Our AI platform's impact and application goes beyond drug discovery. We have a biomarker set that has been identified for early detection of diabetes, and diabetes, millions of people in the US and many millions in the world are suffering from diabetes. Think about if there's an ability through a simple test being able to identify what the risk of progression, risk of disease is, and that's the lateral flow assay that leverages the AI technology that we have patented. And in addition to that, the personal wellness recommendation engines across 5 different diseases. So we're very pleased with the patents and the proprietary nature of our data, and we continue to strive for the rest of the portfolio that we are building in diabetes and Alzheimer's to get to that patentable step very soon. And in a way to bring it all together in terms of what I've shared with you, we think about competitively, what is GATC, who are they, and how do they differentiate? Through information here, I just want to reiterate that there's nobody else who can tell you at a human level how your drug would react in the body. In addition to that, the data points that we have, the 6.4 billion, is a massive amount of data to replicate how human body operates. We are not limiting ourselves to just genomics, but also many other omics, and hence our platform is multi-omics. And being able to deliver very specific targeted drugs in a limited period of time at much less cost than our competition, and very well knowing that the upside potential of those drugs for those diseases, for those patients, is quite high. We de-risk and we increase efficiency, I would say, to bring those better drugs faster for pharma industry and the ecosystem around it. So with that, I'd like to transition it back to Ty to share more about our competitive highlights as well as the team.
Thank you, Preetam. So in summary, just to recap before we get into the team and some of the next steps, is to recap really what GATC is. I like to say that we're in the center of this perfect storm that's happening in the industry. On one hand, you have the pharmaceutical business, which it absolutely needs to be fixed economically and as far as its output. And we're seeing great receptivity for our solution in terms of helping, as Preetam shared, all of the steps along the way from drug discovery to testing to regulatory approval, and then getting them to market. So we can add value along that entire ecosystem by shrinking the timeline greatly, by allowing those drug companies to fail faster with drugs, so that if they know through our platform it's going to fail, it has an 85% chance of failure, rather than spending billions of dollars in many, many years, they can put that drug further down the pipeline in terms of testing. So there's a lot of value we can add there. This other piece, as far as being able to mimic human biology, that's unique. So being able to take this perfect storm of the pharmaceutical industry needs to be fixed, this AI platform, which mimics human biology, we've had many bankers say, you really cross two groups. You're in the biotech sector, but you're also in the technology sector. You have two sides of your story. And then we also combine that with this third piece, which is this phenomenon that's happened over the last 1 or 2 generations of people want more data. They want more control over their data, more access to their data, and they want to know how to do things and predict and take action off of that data that's going to help their health. And our platform does all of those things. And getting more specific in terms of other companies, like we have talked about Schrodinger and other companies that have $1.5, $2.5 billion market caps, we're actually showing that we can do what they're saying they can do at lesser cost and faster and more accurately, because our platform is fundamentally different. So it all goes back to that artificial intelligence platform that allows us to do that. And as far as the value, every time we produce a drug and then get that drug through the preclinical and then finally it gets into the FDA process, we would receive revenue up front in terms of tiered pricing or tiered payments based on meeting milestones, and then also a percentage royalty on the back end of that. And as a comparison, there's a company that Accenture that signed a deal with Sanofi, and they were doing some very robust co-marketing and co-development of taking those products to market. But that $5.2 billion deal that they did for 15 drugs put it at over $300 million in value per drug. Our platform has the ability to produce six to 10 or more of these new novel drugs annually, and we can always increase that scale. So you can see the magnitude of the market value that we're creating here. So getting into the team, Jonathan Lakey, Dr. Lakey, who is our chief of our scientific advisory board, world-renowned UCI emeritus professor, Mark Palema, who's our technology advisor. He was on with eBay for the first 10 years, rolled up hundreds of companies into their cloud technology and integrating their business models into eBay. So he's been wonderful as far as talking about scale. We just brought, fortunately, on Dr. Seema Gupta, who's been with the VA for 20 years. A lot of influence there. Dr. Jack Lewin, who has advised now 3 presidents, very familiar with the FDA process. Dr. Stanley Lewis, Chief Medical Officer of a current pharmaceutical company, as well as previous companies. Patrick Lilly, who is Science Advisor, CEO, and founder of Liquid Biosciences, also sits as the co-chair of the AI and blockchain task force on the FDA. So we have some, Dr. Chad Beyer has brought several drugs completely through the FDA process. So I could go on and on. We have a wonderful set of advisors. They've all looked under the hood. They're amazed about what we can do, and they want to be a part of the team. I will say this is that they've all been very instrumental, because we haven't yet said that we have 2 drugs that we've developed that are in preclinical right now. So we've gone beyond what is called the in silico development process of developing those drugs on our AI platform. And we're now into the labs, into cell labs or in vitro, and we'll be in animal trials with those drugs, actually completing those by the beginning of next year. We'll be entering those animal trials with a major university, a major research university this summer. And so very excited about that. Our management team, Ian Jenkins and Jason Uffins, who have been working together for years in this space. Ian is our Chief Science Officer, Jason, our Chief Technology Officer. Tremendous amount of experience in this space. Jason has scaled some huge technology platforms, Grubhub, GoDaddy, et cetera. Ian, part of the very first Human Genome Project. He is truly a genius, and we have some other fantastic folks on our team as well. I'll close with a couple of quick slides here. This is a third-party research document by a company called Deep Pharma Intelligence. They produce an annual report, and they update it quarterly. This is one of it's a long report, but this is one slide I'll share with you. Is that looking at the companies that are in this AI drug discovery space, the companies in the very top row are the ones that Deep Pharma Intelligence has identified that has a end-to-end solution using artificial intelligence to affect the entire spectrum of drug discovery all the way through approval and market, taking it to market as Priedemann described. On the far right-hand side are, of course, the newer companies. But here's what's important. If you look at the market cap of these companies on the top row, and I'll speak for one of our advisors, Patrick Lilly from Liquid Biosciences, who does biomarker discovery for 9 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world. He's worked with most of those companies on the top row. He is now working exclusively with us, because he gets better results in partnering with us for our platform to take his biomarkers, or basically the cause of the disease in the body, and giving us that data and allow us to create novel therapeutics from that data. So we're very excited about that report. I'll close with this slide. So even though we're technically a private company, we do have a Regulation A offering out there. Stock is available at $5 per share for common stock. Right now, we have based on shares outstanding, it puts us at about a $250 million market cap. You can see the upside opportunity. We have, as we've said, been in discussions with several tier one banks. They're very excited. Our desire, our goal is to position ourselves for an IPO. Of course, nothing is for sure, but that's our goal. We're growing very rapidly. So here's some contact information. We'd be happy to speak with you individually. And I'm now going to offer opening up for any questions anyone may have. Thank you for your time.
Great presentation. Yes, let's jump into some quick questions for the remaining time. Tyler Clayton asks, could you talk about your current burn rate? How are you raising money? And what's the exit plan for an investor? Plus, are you going to go public?
Well, the last question is always a big question mark, right? I've said that's our intention, but we won't know until we cross that bridge. But we've had some really great discussions with some banks about that potential opportunity. The good news is that we've got our burn rate is very low. We're around $50,000 a month. We're a type of company that likes to bring on people that are passionate about what we're doing. And of course, being an early stage company, we have the opportunity to offer stock option incentives. So we keep our burn rate very, very low. We have probably a year's worth of cash for burn. So that's not a problem. We've been able to raise money very successfully based on the story. The Regulation A has been a really great instrument for us for raising cash. So I get the question, and cash is not an issue for this company. We have a tremendous amount of interest.
Great. Flora Gutierrez asks, is the drug innovation part of your platform?
Friedemann.
Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to identifying new targets, as well as identifying new drugs, both for small molecule and biologics, is the fundamental business that we are in. And that is the reason why we feel pharma industry, who's currently relying very heavily on smaller companies to get innovation because their own pipelines are drying out, they would run marathon to get to us and get benefit from our AI technology. So the answer is yes.
Great. And Christy Franklin asks, does the fact that the current administration and potentially future administrations want to cap drug prices affect your model?
I can take a stab at that.
Yeah.
So what that means is that the revenue generation for pharma would be capped, perhaps similar to how some of the other closed systems like UK and Canada do. And what that would require for pharma industry is to get more efficient in innovation so that the investment that they're putting in today, the 2.6 billion, becomes completely unsustainable. So they're going to look at ways on how they can really identify which drug will work. And that's where we will be the partner. So that only helps our business model and helps pharma achieve that kind of a challenge, overcome that challenge.
Great. Lauren Pittman says, the U.S. is the most litigious country in the world. What percentage of drug cost is reserved for litigation, in your opinion? And that being said, can you scale or focus your business in other litigious countries?
I couldn't answer what percent of drug costs are reserved. I think if you think broadly, every company that comes in has their coverage. They ensure their funds and their sources and their revenues are covering them for the next 5 to 10 years. And in that regard, every pharma is covered. They know the risks are very high and they make really smart strategic choices of which markets they would enter. But it's more of a pharma question than for us.
I think if I can read into that question a little bit, anything that has to do with whether it be legal risk or health risk or financial risk, of course, better data alleviates that risk. So I think anything that's going to put economic pressure, like the previous question, or legal pressure on the pharmaceutical model is only going to be helping us in that, because we can de-risk the drug development and regulatory process because we're giving them more insight about how these drugs affect each body affect biological systems in real time versus having to put those drugs into human beings. So I would think anything that has to do with risk is going to help us in terms of de-risking that process.
Great answer. Lisa Bowers wants to know a little bit more information. Is your model more diagnostic, innovation, or is it delivery, or a consolidated technology medical platform? If you could explain.
I'm going to start and then Friedman jump in. Here's the thing that's so exciting about what we're doing. Our platform has the potential to do many things, and we're a new company. So we are remaining very, very focused on one primary goal, and that is to prove that our platform and our system can invent a novel drug and get it through the preclinical process all the way through animal testing and partner with pharmaceutical companies to take those drugs to market. And by proving that, which we'll prove that by the end of this year, by proving that, we can also demonstrate that we can do this many, many times a year, producing hundreds of millions of dollars in profit for the company each time we do that, because we're offsetting those costs. So we can do all those things that wonderful question talked about, yet we're very focused on drug discovery. And Preeta, please add anything that
I think you got it. The platform can cover end-to-end services that pharma needs and the ecosystem needs. But like Ty said, we are focusing where our strength is, and we remain opportunistic on where pharma reaches out for help. We'll go and help them in other aspects as well, but drug discovery is our core.
Ed Chapman asks, can you give us some numbers, assets, liabilities, top, bottom line, burn rate, and if you're operating in the red each month, how are you funding it?
I'll go back to the other question, which was as far as cash. We really haven't had a problem raising cash. We've raised, I think, around $20 to $25 million. Our burn rate, as I said before, is quite low. We put a tremendous amount of pressure on the platform as opposed to people, so we can keep our head count low. So our burn rate is not an issue. Raising cash is not an issue. Are we in the red? Yes, we have a burn rate. But based on us proving that we can get these drugs through the preclinical stage and prove that our platform can not only do this once, but many times, we're very confident that we'll be able to sign significant deals with pharmaceutical companies next year. We're hoping to do some smaller deals this year. We've actually done a number of deals already in terms of the diagnostic space that have generated millions of dollars to the company. So we're always selling, yet we're in the process of proving this platform for drug discovery.
Great. And here's our last.
And of course, is there any specific questions on that? We're happy to take those offline. Yeah.
Okay. Our last question here from Henry Watson. How do you recreate human biology? He'd like to know, is this a new field in biotech? And if so, which majors would this benefit the most?
I'll take a stab real quick, Preeta. So the answer is there's some incredibly smart scientists that we have here that are thinking outside the box. As you guys know, everything from Tesla to whoever. I mean, some of the greatest innovative disruptive technology has not happened from within the industry. It's happened from bright minds outside of the industry. And I think that's our case. So basically using a tremendous amount of technology, because AI is a very broad spectrum. This has been development for many years. The company has been here since 2020, is that basically we have used software that uses a lot of data that replicates a disease model for a particular disease. And based on that disease model, we're throwing at that model all kinds of known and unknown potential therapeutics to see if we're affecting the cause of that disease. And that happens very, very rapidly, very, very quickly. Out of that, we let the platform give us a list of prioritized opportunities that we can create drugs from. That's what Preeta said is done in months, not years. So I'll pause at that. And Preeta, anything to add?
So I'll address the second part of the question on what specialties that would impact. If you're thinking from a career standpoint, it's science and technology coming together. So anybody who's doing work in AI, data sciences, and has a scientific background with technology experts, that's the area that would thrive. And very soon, this industry will become very hungry for that talent, and that would be crucial. And the human-like environment. The only thing I would add is there are other companies that would say, oh, we can tell what the drug will do in a cell, billions of cells in the human body, but in one cell, one type of cell. Or we can tell in a particular organ how this drug would react. But we know that the human system doesn't work in silo and everything is interrelated. So if you imagine, these circles and spokes connecting them, and there are these billions of cells working together, one impacting the other, the domino effect of what happens in a particular particular organ to rest of the organs is something nobody else can predict. But our human-like environment can tell if this drug is given in brain, what will happen to lungs and livers and kidneys and normal functioning and the blood system, etc. So that's the unique aspect of how this human-like environment works.
Wonderful. Well, this is a very complicated topic, and we're so can't do it in just 30 minutes or 45, but we would love for you to come back and join us again with some updates. This is fascinating stuff that you guys are working on here. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you again. And stay with us, everyone. We're going to transition to our next presenter. We'll be right back.